Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening up in the sky above us for the week ahead. It is January 12th and Monday, so we are looking ahead at the week. But the week is really quiet. There's not a whole lot going on. It's not reminiscent of the September, October, November, December months where so much was clouding us up. It's kind of quiet. Even though there's a lot going on underneath the surface, and there is a lot that we could talk about. Today, what I want to do is dive a little deeper into the gates 61 and then ultimately the gate 60, which in human design are wonder and limitation. And it's interesting, right? Because what happens when wonder meets limits, right? What happens? Because those are the weeks that follow one another in human design. And I just thought it of interesting, or in an interesting time period. And the gate 61 we talked a lot about on Friday because I knew it was coming up for Sunday. And on Sunday, we switched to the sun in gate 61, where it is the inner mystery that we are contending with, not outer answers. When we look at it through human design, we see the different centers in the body graph. And I'm going to put up a body graph here in a minute. They all field a different kind of energy, right? They have a different purpose. The head center is a purpose of pressure, and that pressure is to answer questions. The question in the gate 61 is why? And this is where revolution, not revolution, although revolution maybe, this is where revelation comes from, through the silence, through awe, and through not knowing, right? Not knowing the answer. Not knowing the answer to the question why allows space for wonder and awe and the not knowing to be a surprise in its revelation. But when this gate is overstimulated, it becomes mental anxiety or becomes obsession. And when it's honored, the gate 61 opens up to true inner knowing. And this is something huge for all of us because so much is going on in our outer world on any given day. So much rhetoric, so much chat, talk. And we don't even know if what's being said is true. And the only tool we really have in all of that then is our inner knowing. So why does this week matter in all of this? Because we don't just have the sun there, right? We don't have only one planet or point sitting at the gate 61. We have a chorus of planets and energies at this gate 61. Until the 16th, which is Friday, the sun is there. And the sun here is illumination of the mysteries, right? Of the mystery of the mind, of inspiration, of thought. Then we have Venus here, and she is here until the 13th, so tomorrow. And this is where valuing truth over certainty comes in, right? So many times I end up in conversations with people, especially ones that have a defined ajna, which would be the second center down, not the head center, who really believe that they're right and that there's no room for anybody else's rightness. There's no room for any equivocation about what they have certainty over. Now, that's how they're designed, right? That design is there and that's who they're meant to be. But it doesn't leave any room for valuing the truth. So we have to watch for that with Venus here at this particular gate. And then we have Mars here. Mars is here from January 11th until the 18th. And this is agitation. And also an urgency around the I need to know. I need to know what to do, what to say, where to go, what this means. How is this going to turn out? Right? All this pressure. And then just to add some, salt into this, we also have Mercury at this gate from the 15th, which is Thursday, through the 18th. And here's where we have the attempt by the mind to explain the inexplicable. Right? Where the mind gets involved, where the planet Mercury gets involved, we're trying to put words to what it is that we're thinking. And that may or may not be something that works for us because there's just so much uncertainty around what's happening. And this can explain a lot about how people are feeling today and on through the week and even into next week, where we're mentally restless. I, I was watching TV last night and I fell asleep. I fell dead asleep. And I woke up, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes later. And I'm like, whoa, like there's not much I can do right now physically. So I can't possibly be physically um, worn out. In fact, I shouldn't have been because I didn't do much of anything physically yesterday at all. But mentally and emotionally, definitely being wrung out. And then I get to bed and then I can't go to sleep. Right? I'm laying there going, thinking about things and, all different kinds of topics running through my head. So that mental restlessness can be very powerful in our minds right now and be something that we have difficulty tuning out, right? Or toning down. There may be a lot of questioning about your beliefs, whether they're your own beliefs or the world's beliefs or other people's beliefs. That questioning is absolutely a part of this energetic scenario with these 4 planets sitting here. And they're all the inner planets, by the way, right? They're not the outer planets. These are the inner planets. And they are indefinitely or definitely creating some, inner questioning and inner conversation about all of these things and the inner pressure as well. Then we may also feel more pulled inward, right? Pulled inward where, we don't really need to or want to interact with the outer world. It was kind of funny because my husband this morning before he started work told me that there were like no cars on the road this morning, that he got to work without anything. He's like, is it a holiday that I don't know about? And I said, no, I guess not. But maybe people are feeling the pull to, work from home, being more homebound or being more quiet and inward focused. Then there is the potential for all of us to receive downloads, those things that we can't yet articulate. We can't quite yet put them into words, but we could be receiving downloads or insights from spirit about what our next steps may be, the direction that we're headed, who we're going to be doing things with, etc. So interesting, right? Interesting times. Now, this week of wonder ends up moving us from wonder into limitation next week and moves us into the pressure of the root center. So I'm going to show a graphic here of what this week looks like. It's also on the thumbnail for the broadcast this morning. So we have the gate 61. It's up here in the head center. The head center being a pressure center. And the pressure center here is all about the question and the need that we feel, or the feeling of having to answer something, or the pressure to think. And it's not, I would say it's not just the pressure to think, it's the pressure to know, to actually get the answers to the questions that we're asking, to the question why specifically, because that's what the gate 61 is. And it's we want to know how to understand life, to understand what it is that's happening around us. The why is this an experience that we're having? We want to grasp the truth, right? We're still not sure, right? We're not sure of what the energies are telling us or what the words out there in the world are telling us. Because one day it's one thing and another day it's another thing. One source it's one thing and another source it's another. So it leaves us to feel the need for truth or understanding from an inner knowing, right? Inner knowing. You're not going to get it from outside. You're going to have to do it from the inside. And we want to make sense of the mystery of existence itself, even. Like, we may not just be thinking about the small world, we may be thinking about the big world as well, and asking those bigger questions. And this isn't logical pressure. There's not logic in this area. This is existential pressure. The pressure to know why. And if you look here, I listed the sun is here from the 11th to the 16th, Mars from the 11th to the 18th, Venus from the 11th to the 14th, and Mercury from the 15th to the 18th. And I actually think Venus is there till the 13th. I might have mistyped that. Venus is there. That's Venus. Oh, no, she is there through the 14th. Okay. Oh, all right. So then the nature of the gate 61, which we did talk a lot about, but now I want to go, maybe dive down a little bit deeper. This is called the gate of wonder. And wonder as in you can take in a lot of the information from around you or the input from the universe. And without trying to understand it, to just wonder about it, right? What if this has no meaning, that kind of thing, right? What if? And the mind is reaching beyond here what can truly be explained or proven even, right? The gates in the head are often gates where we're trying to prove what we know is true, right? There isn't ability here to prove, and there isn't ability here to really explain. This is all about the wonder. But it is the pressure to answer the questions like, why am I here? Or what is true? What is not true? What does it all mean? Right? That is the pressure that we're all feeling in the head center right now. And here is the key, right? The key is that the gate 61 does not provide the answers. The answers are not in this gate. The answers are not in this week. There are no answers to the question why. It's the pressure that will eventually lead us to insight, and often much later than the time that the gate is being occupied by planets. You have 4 planets here, right? Counting the sun as a planet, even though it's not a planet, it's a star. But if you've got 4 bodies sitting here, and those 4 bodies, come from a different plane of view, you're not going to get answers here, right? There aren't any answers yet. And the insight doesn't arrive through your effort. There's nothing you can really do to get answers except to step back and just be open to receiving those answers in the right time, in the right place, with the right people perhaps around you at the time that the answers come. And often the answers don't arrive through anything of worth that you're doing. It arrives in the stillness. The gate 52 is called the gate of stillness. It's way down here on the root center. And it is in the pressure of doing, right? So the gate 52, which all of you have, whether it's defined or not, right? You all have the gate 52. And it's the pressure of stillness, just being still. It is arriving through silence, perhaps, right? Not saying, not forcing those words to come. It comes maybe through awe, right? Something in nature or something that you view or experience that brings this awe to your forefront. And maybe the surrender that we can impart not knowing into, right? Not knowing. But when the gate 61 is overstimulated, and I would say that it's overstimulated, right? With 4 planets sitting there, there's a lot of opportunities, and they're all overlapping this gate with the exception of Mercury. That doesn't move in there until the 15th, but he comes right in the smack middle of all of this, right? When this pressure builds in us without any kind of relief, it can feel very uncomfortable. And it can be where we really experience that mental anxiety, where the mind is just working overtime. We can become obsessive in our thinking. We can feel an urgent need for certainty, which keeps us seeking for answers. But the answers are elusive. They don't come. And we can be feeling overwhelmed by questions with no clear resolution, on and on and on through at least the 18th, when Mars and Mercury exit that gate, right? So that mental pressure is there. The mind is trying to force some kind of revelation, but this isn't a gate of the mind. This is really a gate of inspiration, inspiritedness. And the revelation doesn't respond to force. You cannot force an epiphany. You cannot force a revelation. It's like it happens the moment you forget that you were thinking about an answer that you needed to something is when that answer creeps in, right? It happens all the time, right? Where you just are, trying and trying and trying to get a solution, and you finally go, I give up. And then a day, maybe 2 days later, maybe hours later, boom, there it is, right? You have the answer. So when we honor gate 61, something shifts within us, and it becomes a point where we're not seeking the answers, but we yet allow that question to persist. We hold on to the question. It's okay to hold the question, just not to try to force the answer. And in that space, the pressure softens, right? Insight just sort of ripens so that we can, get it. We can grasp to it. And truth arrives organically, right? Where we've not been striving for it. It just boom, there it is. And it doesn't always arrive as certainty, right? Remember, we talked last week about you recognizing the truth or recognizing the answer. It's recognition, but not certainty. And it's a quiet knowing that doesn't really need explanation. So honor the gate 61 in us all this week, right? This gate energy of wonder. And the sun, like I said, illuminates these existential questions. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? Who am I meant to be with? Those kinds of questions. What work am I here to do? Venus will ask us to value that truth over certainty. And Mars will actually add that urgency. I need to know now. It's the one planet, I think, here that really can mess this up for us, right? Can really get us to be asking the question, trying to force the answers. And then Mercury then trying to articulate what isn't yet ready to be explained, which can lead us to stutter and to, not have answers to questions. And we're just trying to stumble through any kinds of explanations. So if you're feeling that mental restlessness, then it may be time for you to just sit back and relax, right? It's gate 61 doing its job, right? That's the gate. Now, this is not a week then for you to demand answers from your mind. It's a week to honor the questions, yes, and trust that understanding will arrive in its own timing. Just don't try to force those answers. Now, I wanted to also, I'm going to stop this for a second and say good morning to people. But then I also want to take the 61 and move it through the gene keys so we can see the frequency levels. What's the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi in the gate 61? But first, let's say good morning to everyone who is showing up out here. Good morning, Tamara. Good to have you with us this morning. And Christine Buckingham, good morning to you. Patty, good morning. Andy girl, good morning to you. Julie, good morning. And TD Hawk says, the sleep pattern you shared has been what I have been dealing with for a while. There's just been a lot of pressure, right? And if you are someone who in your own human design has a defined head center, this pressure because it's always there with you. I have an open head center, so I feel it acutely when that center ends up being defined by, like right now with all these planets sitting here. But if you're someone who has that center already defined in your natal human design chart, then you're already familiar with this pressure of answering questions, right? So it can make it a little bit more exquisitely difficult for you because now whatever planet you have sitting there is being compounded by Sun, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, right? Good morning, Teddy Hickox. And Christine says, I had it last night for no apparent reason too. Yep, just laying there, counting stars, listening to the wind, listening to the rain. And, then for me, I end up starting to think about things that are really going to overstimulate me even further. Like, how do you solve the world's problems? Why do people think the way they think right now? Like, why are we not all in love with one another? And why are we fighting and fuming and fussing and conquering nations and doing that kind of stuff, right? That's all old patterning. And there are no answers to that, really. Natasha, good morning to you. She said, funny, I had a conversation with my husband last night about traveling to see where we would want to live. He wants to do a lot of this in a week. I don't want to move from the state. Ooh. What I got from the universe last night was just appreciate what you would lose or would not be able to do now. Spend time with those friends, interact with things, make a list of desires or wants. Yeah. I told you guys last week that I actually, I don't know what it's over there. My journal has, what do I want to do? What don't I want to do? I have this running list, right? This is so indicative of that open head center, now defined, that now wants answers, right? I want answers because like I'm caught between, do I keep doing this work or do I just not? Right? That's honestly, people, that is where I'm caught between. And it's an old dynamic. It's one that I've been feeling for a lot of months. It's not like new. And the only reason that I still do what I do is because I'm under so many Saturn transits right now that it's not the right time to make those kinds of decisions. But every day I have to have a conversation with myself about waiting, being in a space of calm, or being in a space of not knowing the answers, right? Not knowing that answer right now, not knowing who I want to be or what I want to do, how I want to show up in the world. I just have to be okay with that. And for me, that likely doesn't shift until after February. So you guys be lucky that it's this week for you and not necessarily several months. So anyway, Natasha, I feel you. I totally do. And it is something we will all get through because there are no answers in the thinking. No matter how much I think about it, there's no answer. And you know, what's funny is I reached out to an astrologer friend of mine. I want to say it was in July because I think it was right after my birthday. Yeah, I think it was right after my birthday. And so he had pulled a chart that was my solar return. And he said, yeah, he said some big aha or some big life change is about to happen. And I'm, dude, it's already happened. I'm now living in an RV on my daughter's property and da da da. And he's like, no, that's not it. That's not it. And he thought somewhere in the fall, and if not in the fall, in the spring, that would happen. And that's the waiting for all of that gets to us, right? I want it now. I want to know now. I want to plan now for it. So much pressure, right? So I understand what you're going through completely. All right. Good morning, Catherine. It's good to see you with us. And let's now take a look at the gene keys here, because sometimes the gene keys to me, you know, I keep my Kindle right next to me here when my foot is up in the air right now, my leg, because I want to be able to go deeper when I have that moment, right? When that moment strikes. So the gene keys often can afford us the opportunity to see things in the layers, in the holographic nature of the universe, which is oriented through shadow and gift and siddhi in the gene keys. Now, as we take this deeper, we can see how pressure works, right? And the gene key 61 is one of the most profound in the whole entire system of the gene keys. Because in the shadow, it's the energy called psychosis. Psychosis. Hold that for a moment. Now, when you hear the word psychosis, I want you to be very clear. This is not a diagnosis, right? I am not saying we are all psychotic. It is a state of consciousness that is available around us at this moment in time. And the shadow of the gene key 61 here arises when the mind becomes over-identified with thought, with thinking, with the constant barrage of the mind moving. And it's the belief that the mind must, or that you and your mind must understand everything. Right? Before taking action, you must understand. You should be able to explain truth. And if you can't, something is wrong with you. And this is the pressure to know that's turning inward and becoming anxiety. And in this state, the mind spins. It just spins. And, I was having a conversation with one of my grandchildren, and we were talking about the fact that so many kids, teenage or older, like young 20s, maybe even older teens, are experiencing what they think is ADD or ADHD or OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And I can't help but look at that and think about this particular gate, the psychosis, when questions become obsessive, right? When those questions are floating around and you're constantly trying to answer them, and you're reaching out to everybody you know, asking those same questions. What do I do? Who am I? Where do I go? Why is this happening? And then certainty feels necessary for our safety, which is, of course, not true. And mystery feels threatening rather than sacred. This is what happens when the mind tries to own the truth instead of just receiving it, right? When we're on this striving for those answers. Now, the turning point of all this is surrendering the need to know. Can you surrender the need to know? Some can, and some find this extraordinarily difficult. But here's the key turning point of this whole gene key, right, in surrendering. It happens by releasing the demand for answers. Stop asking the question, and the anxiety can disappear. It happens the moment you stop trying to force insight, right? The moment you stop forcing insight means that you're allowing the question to exist without a resolution. And then something begins to soften in the mind, in the heart, in the soul, right? And that softening opens the door to the gift in the gate 61 or gene key 61, which is inspiration. Inspiration is the gift, right? It's not motivation. It's not mental clarity. It's inspiration, the kind that descends, right? If we go back to our picture here of the head center, remember, part of it sits above. You can see just barely the outline of the head here. Part of it sits above, like above us, above our heads, above the physical body, where we can become inspirited as information drops in to us, right? And it arrives sometimes unexpectedly. In fact, I guarantee you it arrives unexpectedly. Sometimes it arrives gently, right? Gently dropping in without logic, right? We weren't planning. We weren't looking at this is, how this has to come. It just drops in. And it often happens in moments of rest or beauty. We're out in nature and it suddenly, we get it. Or silence, even in meditation, right? We're not chasing it, and we don't have to figure it out. We don't have to do anything except be open to receive the inspiration, which means we are consciously pulling ourselves out of the shadow of psychosis. And what's important here is that inspiration doesn't need explanation to be valid. And in fact, I would say quite frequently in this gate, we become inspired, right? Because the wonder and the awe and the inspiration drop in, but then we don't have the words for it yet, right? We can't quite put it into words, but it's knowing that it feels true, even when the words lag behind. And the fear that we have, of course, is that the words won't come, right? That somehow we'll lose the words, but they will come. But be in the inspiration of it all first. And this is where the pressure of the head center finally gets some relief, not by the answers, but just by trusting that you will become inspired. The questions will, if they're meant to get answered, they will get answered. You won't be missing anything, right? That inspiration comes. Now, I see your question, Christine, and I will absolutely answer that. But let me finish with the siddhi of the gate 61, because it's a word that's very, it's a hard word, at least for me. I don't know if you guys can wrap your mind around the word sanctity, right? At the highest expression, the gene key 61 is sanctity. And sanctity is reverence for life itself. Kind of here, the mind bows, right? It bows to the spirit, not because it's broken. Nobody's broken, but because it recognizes that the mystery is sacred. It's a part of why we're here, right? To play with this sacredness. And at this level, the questions dissolve into awe. Silence becomes wisdom. And truth is felt as presence rather than some kind of concept, right? It's not the concept of truth, it's the presence of it, the full on big truth, right? I would say everything happening on the planet, on the actual physical part of the earth, is designed to take us away from the truth, right? It's a smokescreen, because the truth on the planet is that there really isn't any truth. It's all a varied kaleidoscope of truths, more than one, right? People's truths. So wonder in the gate or gene key 61, sanctity, completes its journey here, right? We move from psychosis into the gift of inspiration and ultimately into the sanctity or reverence for life itself. And then with so many planets activating this particular gate right now, this gene key this isn't theoretical, right? It's lived. And it's lived because old belief systems may not feel stable to us. In fact, they're very unstable. Everything out there is unstable. And certainty may feel less available because there isn't any certainty out there. And quiet insight may feel more trustworthy than the actual loud opinions of people. And trust me, there are a lot of loud opinions out there, right? So all of us are being asked to loosen our grip on knowing, right? Thinking that we know, so that inspiration can arrive and that inspiration can lift us up into the real truth and not into any false truth that's out there. And it teaches us that truth isn't something that the mind conquers. The mind can't go out there and do anything. If anything, it's that the soul, our soul, your soul, each one of our souls remembers the truth, remembers the inspiration and the sanctity of everything, right? Okay. All right. So I told Christine I would come back to her question. And it's probably a question that, I did not want to do that. I wanted to remove that. Okay, there we go. So here's her question. First of all, her comment, a constant stream of overstimulation and excessive information 24/7 may be the root of that anxiety, right? It's not just the root of it. It's the starting point from which then the mind picks it all up and then tries to decide what to do with it, right? How to answer the question, why, what, how, when, where, can you prove it? All that kind of pressure that we can feel there. And here's her question. What does the number after the gate number mean? For example, 61.4, Mars Capricorn defined head. Is that called a line number? And yes, it is. So if you think of the 61, in this case, we'll use the 61 as a highway. It's a highway that has 6 lanes. And each one of us is traveling through a lane of that highway. If you have that gate defined, like you say you have it in the line 4, that's the line that we identify as the relationship line. So the energy of the gate 61 for you, i.e. the lane of that gene key that you are traveling in, is all about relationships and about love. It is really about trying to find in your relationships that space of unconditional love, of unity, of oneness, right? The 4th line is very relationship oriented. So a lot of the questioning and a lot of the pressure in that head center for you might be about love and relationship, right? Who am I in the mirror of these relationships and so forth. So there are 6 numbers. The line 1 is about investigation. It is someone that searches for answers. So can you imagine 61 in the gate 1 and how that might feel to that person to always be questioning, always be researching and hunting, on the hunt, on the search for the answers to questions. In the line 2, is the hermit line, or the line of the natural person, the person who just naturally has a talent for the answers, but they don't necessarily share those with other people until they're called out into the world to do so. The line 3 is experiential and experimental. So they're always bumping into different ideas of what truth is or what the questions are and trying to prove themselves through experiences. Line 4, we said, was relationships. Line 5 is going to be through leadership, through, standing tall, being seen. And sometimes it is a line that we think of as being projected upon by others as either the general, yes, I will listen to you, or the savior, right? You can help me. You can save me. Then the line 6 is the role model line. So the role model always shows up is somebody with wisdom. They don't even necessarily go out there trying to be the role model, but it's how they get perceived by others as having the answers to those questions, as having had, maybe the experience. The 6 is the double 3s, and having the wisdom, having been there, done that, and now I can share and teach and give it over to other people. So those lines kind of modify how the gate 61, or any gate for that matter, or any gene key for that matter, is going to play out for you personally. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions about that. There is a knowing without words that can't be put into language. Indeed. And that means it's not meant to be put into language yet, maybe not ever, right? It might just be something, a personal inspiration, a personal knowing that you have that's not necessarily meant to share with others. And at other times, then it suddenly becomes recognition that this is something I need to share. And that then will be the words flowing easily, right? The words will come. Good morning, Asa. Good to see you. Teddy, my brain is not ones and zeros. It's the card catalog files at the library. I love it. Because it's kind of true, right? We all have the card catalog in our brains, right? Of all the experiences that we've ever had, all the books we've ever read, all the people we've ever heard talk, all the things that, have occurred to us are stored in the card catalog that is your brain. And, sometimes it comes together nicely and, all the connections come together. And other times it's like you took the card catalog drawer, remember old libraries had these drawers, and dumped the cards out, and now they're all a jumble, right? This is kind of what we're talking about with this week. The cards are a jumble. And you're welcome, Christine. And TD Hawk, where can I get those numbers info chart? They are on your human design chart. So if you have your copy of your human design chart, that is where you will find those numbers. And if you want the explanation of those numbers, just, Google gate 61 line 4, and you can get some of that information. And if you need your chart, you can go to my website, living-astrology.com. And I'm going to share that right at the top of the before my picture even, it says, get your free human design chart, right? Click on that. It will take you to a screen where you can enter in your information, generate your own chart and a report even, and you can have that at your fingertips, right? So living-astrology.com. All right. Now, let's move on. What time is it? 8:38. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the gate 61 because it's what we are experiencing through 4 planets this week, and actually through Sunday the 18th. But we move then from the mental pressure of the head center to the thrival pressure of the root center. Actually, it's the doing pressure of the root center, which becomes a stress, right? I'm going to share the screen again so you can see this. We move from this as a pressure center about how to answer the questions to the root center pressure, which is the stress of what action do I take? What am I going to do with this? And what we'll find next week is all the same planets that are now occupying the 61 will start to move into the gate 60, starting with the Sun on the 17th to the 21st, Venus the 15th to the 18th, Mercury from the 19th to the 21st, Mars from the 19th to the 25th. So this is where the story gets really interesting, because we're going to experience the shift in how we feel the pressure. Not a release of pressure necessarily, but a relocation of it. So right now, all that pressure is in the head. And gate 61 presses the mind to know, to understand, to seek the meaning, to make sense of life. But as these same planets start to move into the gate 60 next week, the pressure, actually this week, Venus starts there on Thursday. The pressure drops from the head down into the root center. And let's talk about the gate 60, because Pluto sat at this gate for quite a while. And this gate is known as conservation. And unlike the gate 61, the pressure is not philosophical or belief oriented or thinking, it's practical, because the root center applies pressure for us to act or to move or to respond or to adapt to reality, right? To adapt to some kind of change. The gate 60 asks us what can be done right now. And then what are the real limits of time and energy and resources, right? And what must be accepted before change can occur. It gets down and real, right? The root center is the interface between us and the earth, essentially, right? So it becomes the interface of practicality. And this is where inspiration from the pressure up here in the head actually meets form. It meets us in action. So this gate has often been a quandary for me, because it's called the gate of limitation in traditional human design. In quantum human design, the gate of conservation. And this gate is about the limits that we need to place. And limits are not the enemy, because it's not restriction for restriction's sake. It's about the necessary limitation so that there is a container to hold the idea so that it can be expressed. So in human design, mutation or change, transformation, doesn't happen without constraint. You know, just like a seed needs soil, right? It's not going to just grow in the package. Like a river needs its banks or its flooding, and how a body needs bones, or else you're just a pile of meat on the ground, right? There's no bones, there's no structure. So insight from up here needs structure. So the gate 61 right now, this week, is opening up the sky for us, if we're playing it with inspiration as opposed to psychosis. Then the gate 60 builds the container for that inspiration, so that inspiration can become real. Now, the shift we may all feel as we start moving through this week, but specifically next week, is the mental relief is paired with physical pressure. Instead of feeling in the mind the pressure, now we might feel it in the body, the embodiment of the pressure. Maybe less obsession with answers, but more awareness about time and energy and boundaries and how to build what we need to build. A desire to do something comes along with that, but we can't do everything, right? Here could be another source of anxiety, is that we might have not yet sat with the mental pressure long enough to get clarity. And then instead of acting on one or two things, we're trying to take action on all of the inspiration. So we have to be careful with this. Often we misinterpret the gate 60 as frustration, right? I certainly did. I certainly do. I have my Saturn there on both design and personality. I have my design Jupiter sitting at gate 60. To me, this has always felt like this cap holding me down. The frustration when I can't rise above it, right? When I can't get free of it. But what's really happening in the gate 60 is realignment with reality, right? The question shifts from what is true to what is possible now. And now is very important here because now is where we are sitting, right? It's this moment. It's not what can we do tomorrow. It's not what should we have done yesterday. It's what in this moment can I do to further this idea or this inspiration. So it's actually perfect that the gate 61 energy comes first, right? You touch on the inspiration before being asked to act on it, even though in your mind you may be thinking, I need to act on this idea, or I need to be, I need to answer this question so I know what to do with this and, answer. You sense the truth before being asked to contain it. And you are gently asking yourself a new set of questions this next week. What idea is ready for form? What idea can I take from the imagination or from the inspiration and move it into the idea realm of action? What needs to wait? What can't I take on right now? And what needs boundaries? This is how the wisdom that we gain from the pressure in the head center, leading us down to the pressure now in the root center, becomes usable, right? It becomes usable. So, wonder kind of opens the door. It opens up the idea stream. It opens us up. And then the limits or the conservation helps us to see how it is that we're going to walk forward with that idea. What is it that we're going to have to put in place to act on that idea? And not everything that we become inspired by is meant to happen. It's not meant to happen now, not all of it, right? But everything that happens now begins with that inspiration, right? So it might mean that the inspiration that occurs is not meant to happen now. Maybe it's meant to be in the future, but there is something that you were inspired by that you can take action on now. So the key to remember as we move through these next 2 weeks specifically, and we'll dive deeper into the 60, maybe on Friday, because that's when it'll dawn on us with the sun. The key is that nothing is wrong with you, especially if this week feels mentally busy and you are not feeling grounded, or even if you're feeling a little constrained or caught up in something like held back. That is exactly how this sequence is meant to work, right? The inspiration kind of, allowing that through giving it space to become something of an inspiration, and then taking the action that is presented to you using your human design type and strategy, right, to take the next steps. And while we're still in the gate 61, which is where we are until Friday, your job is not to decide, right? Your job is to consider, allow the questions, allow, what's percolating through your mind, allow, or kind of notice where your mind is curious and not obsessive, but where is it curious? Maybe framing it as I'm curious about, or I wonder what, use the word wonder even, right? Write ideas down without acting on them, right? That's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. But don't take any action on those ideas yet. Reduce your mental overstimulation. If you need to turn off the TV or put your phone away or turn off the ringer, do so. And create space for silence, for awe, for reflection. Get out into nature if you can. If something feels unfinished or unclear, that's okay. Because if it was ready to be something in the now, then it would be clear. You would know exactly what to do, right? You would have had the splenic sort of intuitive aha moment. You might have had, if you're emotionally defined, that click that you feel this is the right way, this is true, this is the right timing. If you have a sacral feeling in the body clicking, the body saying, then you'll know it's the right timing, right? But if you don't have that, then it's not the right timing. It's not the right time yet, or it's not the right idea, right? Gate 61, gene key 61 is about opening the channel, not completing the process. So give yourself a break, right? Now, as the planets begin to move into gate 60 as the week wears on here, the focus is shifting from insight, right, that aha moment, to containment. And next week then is going to be about choosing one or two ideas to work with or to work on. Not all of them. Not all of them. I know if you're a manifesting generator, that's hard for you because you want to work on all of them. Respecting your time, your energy, your resources, right? So that you're not overusing. We still have those planets in Capricorn opposing Jupiter, which can magnify, amplify, and cause us to overdo, right? Overcommit. And we've still got to be mindful of that. Create simple structures and simple boundaries to contain your ideas. And then let some ideas rest for later, right? You don't have to do them all today. You don't have to do them this week. In fact, I would say not even this week, right? This is the ideal week. Gate 60, as we move into that gate later in the week, it asks us for patience. It says, not everything that inspires you is worth your time and effort right now. But everything that does happen now, or everything that does inspire you now, needs limits to succeed, right? Herein lies the proverbial conundrum, right? We have an inspiration and we just want to jump on it and act on it, but maybe the boundaries are not yet set. Maybe the container isn't yet built, right? You can't put up a house if you haven't built the foundation. Same with our ideas, right? They need a foundation. So this week, ask yourself, what is trying to show itself? What is trying to come through? Don't force it to come through because you'll just get anxious, right? Or overstimulated. Just what is trying to come through? And what can I realistically support? What makes sense for me in my life where I am in my life? And let them be two different questions because they really are two different questions, right? Now, what's trying to show itself is completely different from what can I realistically support, because a lot more may be trying to show itself than what you can realistically support. So now you need some kind of reassurance for your nervous system, because this entire sequence, this week and next week, can really bring up anxiety in our nervous system. And think about it like this. If gate 60 next week, or as we start on Thursday with Venus there, brings up frustration, remember that bringing in the limits, bringing in a container is not a failure, right? Limits are kind of an orientation, right? It holds the stuff that you need so that you can empty it out into the steps that you'll need to take. They help you focus. They help you, protect your energy. And in a way, they give inspiration a place to live, right? So the inspiration needs the boundaries, needs the container, needs the limits in order to get expressed. So, as I said, wonder opens the door and limitation shows us how to walk through it. And then when inspiration meets that structure, something real can be born. We can do something with that inspiration. And all we have to do is simply trust the timing. I know that sounds so easy when I say it. Trust the timing. The process knows what it's doing, right? The universe, is all operating in divine right timing. I know how that can be difficult, right? Because I'm in it, right? I'm in that at this very moment myself. But trust the timing, because the process will, in the right timing, in the right place, with the right people, expose itself, right? It will show up for you. All right. Let's see. I have the chart from you, but didn't know what those secondary numbers meant. Yeah, it's a little deeper dive into human design maybe than what we've actually talked about before, Tamara. But certainly something that is important because it makes you different with the gate 61 than say it makes me different than you with the gate 61, right? It shows us a little bit of variety in how that gate expresses itself, or how that gene key expresses itself. Natasha or Christine, the Bowie Mercury song Under Pressure comes to mind. Indeed, I found myself actually humming that song this weekend. Under pressure. Da, 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 da. Okay, anyway, I'm not a singer. I don't say I am a singer. Natasha, the gate of limitations I just received is about going into observation mode of self and others to read what the universe is trying to tell us, like me being open to receive. Right, exactly. New moon tonight. Good time to ponder these next moves. I'm so out of timing that I had no idea the new moon was tonight. Are we sure it's tonight? Let me look at my January thingy here, because it seems like we just had the full moon. The new moon's actually on the 18th, right? So this coming Sunday. And we'll talk about that then on Friday. But that new moon is interesting because it comes right at the end of Capricorn energy, right? Because on the 19th, we switch to Aquarius energy. So I have a feeling that that new moon is going to be quite interesting, which means, though, that we've just passed through the third quarter of the moon, which is the crisis of action. So for those who set intentions with the new moon that was in Sagittarius, you're now coming through the point of that cycle where what do I do? Becomes a question, becomes a real question, right? The first quarter moon is often the crisis of action, or crisis of consciousness, excuse me, having to make shifts in the mind or in your conscious awareness in order to accommodate the intention that was set back with that new moon. When we get to this quarter, the third quarter is the time where now we have to take action. But if we're going to take action, it can be a crisis because we may not be sure what direction to go. Or, for instance, in the midst of a gate 61 week, where we have confusion, or where we have this, wonder and trying to force things into a reality where we absolutely should not be taking action yet, right? Unless we are very clear about what it is that we're doing. But on Monday, Sunday, we'll have the new moon coming up, and that new moon of Capricorn might be the having come through, structure, starting into the week of structuring the container, the limitations, the conservation, knowing then what it is that our next steps might be. So sounds reasonable to me to think that that might be part of it. Tamara, me too. Been humming that song. And what about how he put some almost circus music to that song? Yeah, because it is a circus, right? It's a circus of your own making in your own mind. Karen's Corner. For the first time in 45 years, Pluto has no personal planet to transit in my chart. I have a new road to navigate. That must feel like freedom to you, Karen. I mean, really, Pluto. I mean, I know how I feel with 100 Saturn transits happening for me right now. I can't even imagine having Pluto transits that were that difficult to contend with. So it must really feel like you've hit pay dirt. You've hit freedom, baby. And maybe now you know what direction to go in. And maybe it's just the details of what comes next. So this morning I pulled out the Guides of the Hidden Realms. Speaking of not knowing, right? The inside of the box says, "Welcome, seeker, to this exploration of the hidden realms, your destiny, and yourself," right? And this is a deck by Colette Baron Reed. Let's pull a card and see what the message might be for us from this deck. Oh, yes, you want to be here. And it's a very red card. Look at that. Bright, 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 bright red. The Burden of Choice. How apropos. Card 43, which is a 7. And it says, choosing higher ground, consequences, unconscious choice making. And interesting because it almost looks like the phase of the moon above her head that we are in right now. Right? With her little apple cheeks there. Let's see what this means. Card 43. Good. These are in numerical order. I like that. It's easier to find them. All right. Here's the card. The key concept, as we saw on the card, is choice as a responsibility, choosing higher ground, the consequences of one's choice, and unconscious choice making. Each moment carries within it the possibility and promise of choice. No matter how long we've been doing something, with our next action, we can pick another way. And yet it's so easy to give our power to someone else or even an algorithm, allowing our environment to make decisions for us. After all, with each choice comes the responsibility of the consequences that follow. Remember to wear the world loosely, and this burden will be much lighter. Right now, you've come to the proverbial fork in the road. Both paths have appeal. There's no obvious best choice. It's necessary that you be fully present, make this decision from your heart, and accept the consequences. Tap into your deepest desire for change and fulfillment, your willingness to be vulnerable, and your commitment to doing whatever it takes. Yes, it will be hard, but also incredibly satisfying. The good news is that if you choose something that isn't in your best interest after all, you can always choose life, or you can always choose again. Life is amazing that way. Now, this is not, the card came out upright, right? But there is a reversed reading for it, as if it had come out upside down, which I'm going to read, even though it came out upright, because maybe, some of us are experiencing the shadow of this. And then it says, did you make a decision you'd promised yourself you'd never make again? Oof. It's frustrating to be stuck in the same scenario, same scenario, same emotional theme, same pain, same frustration, and same powerlessness. This stems from making an unconscious choice, hoping it would be different. Deep down, though, you knew that the early excitement was masking a pattern you'd not yet addressed. You're being invited now to look at this old wound, your shadow pattern, and how you've adapted to survive it and finally taken the responsibility to heal. Don't punish yourself for doing it again, because it will keep happening until you compassionately bring the original hurt to light. Take heart. This is a wonderful opportunity to lay down the burden of trying to fix your original wound through other people. Remember, the only way out is through. Find someone to talk to and help you sort this out. Soon you will become the person who naturally chooses a different way. You can do it. All right. So if that has meaning for you, this is your card. Okay. That's it for me today. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here with me this morning. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you on Friday. Bye for now.